So I'm presenting data from the UK Destiny clinical trial, which is a study for chronic myeloid leukemia patients where they have reduced their dose of tyrosine kinase inhibitor therapy for 1 year, and we've looked at the effect of reducing the dose and the side effect profile and how that changes on a reduced dose of therapy.
I don't suppose you know any of the facts and figures off the top of your head that we could get into some of the more results.
So we recruited 174 patients to the study. 125 of the patients had undetectable levels of disease and 49 patients had low levels of disease. We split the patients into two groups in terms of measuring how effective reducing the dose was and in how many patients the leukemia gene started to reappear. So in 9 of the 49 patients with the low levels of leukemia, the leukemia gene started to reappear at a median of around 4 months after reducing the dose. And in those patients with much deeper molecular responses where the gene wasn't detectable, only 3 out of 125 patients, which was 2.4%, had recurrence of the leukemia gene. All the patients that had recurrence of the leukemia gene, when we restarted full dose treatment, the leukemia gene disappeared again or went down to very low levels, so they all responded to the treatment. There were no patients who had progressive disease or their disease got worse off therapy. In terms of side effects, most patients reported an improvement in side effects on the half-dose therapy, but the improvements were within the first 3 months of reducing the dose of therapy. So if patients hadn't seen an improvement within the first 3 months, it was unlikely they would see an improvement at later time points. So we think that this could be an option for patients who perhaps have low levels of disease and side effects where they can safely reduce the dose and continue on some form of therapy and maintain their response.
Of course, that then has the knock-on effects of the improvement in pricing and affordability.
So at the moment it has a significant effect on the amount of money that is spent by the health service on these drugs. However, that's likely to change with the introduction of generic imatinib, which is coming in the next couple of months. So the cost savings we're seeing at the moment are likely to be cancelled out by the introduction of the generic imatinib and other drugs.
And you mentioned the toxicity. Was that the nice kind of ammonite spiral graph you had?
Yes, so there's a number of different low-grade side effects, you call them, that patients can have, such as fatigue, diarrhea, muscle spasms, which, while they're not severe, can have significant effects on quality of life because patients cannot be on these drugs for many, many years. Patients in the Destiny trial had been on their treatment for a median of 7 years, so if you can imagine having fatigue or sort of stomach problems for many years, you could imagine how that would affect your quality of life. So the ability to reduce the dose and to then see improvements in side effects for some patients has been really great.
There's been a lot of questions around the kind of the use of MRD and MR3 and 4 as entry criteria rather than exit. Do you have any further thoughts on that?
So we deliberately split it into two groups because we were expecting the two groups to have different levels of relapse, and I think we were quite surprised at how low the level of relapse was in the MR3 group, which are those patients that still had some detectable leukemia. I think we need to really closely monitor these patients, and they were all having monthly PCRs done. And I think it is likely that we will not be recommending, I don't know, we haven't seen the results for the stopping studies yet, or the stopping component of the Destiny study in the MR3 patients. We'll need to wait for that for next year.